Dame Maggie Smith, she made "One Wants Tea" sound like Shakespeare. The final curtain call of Dame Maggie Smith, she could silence a room with the flick of an eyebrow. She could make a single word, obviously, land like a perfectly aimed dart. For 7 decades, Dame Maggie Smith didn't just act. She ruled every scene she stepped into, whether it was a Shakespearean tragedy, a Hollywood blockbuster, or a sprawling country estate where everyone, including the Earl, was terrified of her character's tongue. On September 27, 2024, that final curtain came down. Maggie Smith died peacefully in a London hospital at the age of 89, surrounded by the people she loved most. And somehow, even in death, she managed to do it with the same quiet dignity she brought to every role. No spectacle, no drama, just a graceful exit befitting one of the greatest actresses Britain has ever produced. The announcement that stopped the world. The news came not through a press conference or a tabloid leak, but through a simple, heartfelt statement from her 2 sons, Chris Larkin and Toby Steffens, delivered via her longtime publicist Claire Dobbs. "It is with great sadness we have to announce the death of Dame Maggie Smith," the brothers said, adding that she passed away peacefully in hospital early this morning, Friday the 27th of September. What struck so many people about the announcement wasn't just the loss, it was the tone. Even in mourning, the family honored who she was in life. Smith's sons revealed their mother died at a London hospital, and they specifically thanked the staff at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital for their care during her final days. No cause of death was disclosed, and the family made it clear they wanted that part of the story to remain private, a final boundary drawn by a woman who spent her entire public life guarding her personal one. The statement described her as an intensely private person who was with friends and family at the end, and noted she left behind 2 sons and 5 grandchildren who were devastated by the loss. It's a strange thing, isn't it? A woman who commanded screens watched by hundreds of millions of people, Hogwarts students, Downton Abbey devotees, theater purists, and yet her final wish was simply to be left alone with the people who actually knew her. That contrast says everything about who Maggie Smith really was. From Oxford stages to Hollywood's biggest names. Here's something most people don't know. Before she was terrifying first-year wizards as Professor McGonagall, or reducing entire dinner parties to silence as the Dowager Countess of Grantham, Maggie Smith was just a teenager from Essex with a flair for drama. Born Margaret Natalie Smith in Ilford, Essex, on December 28, 1934, she moved to Oxford with her family at age 4, after her father, a pathologist, took a position at the university. By 16, she was already studying acting at the Oxford Playhouse, and by 17, in 1952, she made her stage debut, playing Viola in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. She summed up her entire career in one disarmingly simple sentence, telling the Associated Press, "One went to school, one wanted to act, one started to act, one's still acting." That's it. No dramatic origin story, no grand declarations of destiny, just a quiet, relentless commitment to the craft, one that would eventually earn her 2 Academy Awards, 5 BAFTAs, 4 Emmys, 3 Golden Globes, 5 Screen Actors Guild Awards, and a Tony. What's fascinating is how her career refused to follow the usual script. While many actresses find roles drying up as they age, Smith's career did the opposite. It exploded. Her career as an older working actress defied Hollywood stereotypes entirely, with breakout roles into her 70s in the Harry Potter franchise and Downton Abbey turning her into a global icon all over again. She once joked, with the dry wit that defined her off-screen persona too, about the realities of aging in the industry. When you get into the granny era, you're lucky to get anything. Lucky indeed. The roles that made her immortal. If you ask 10 different people what they remember most about Maggie Smith, you'll probably get 10 different answers. And that's the whole point. For an entire generation raised on Harry Potter, she was Professor Minerva McGonagall, stern, fiercely loyal, and the only adult in Hogwarts who could make Voldemort look like he'd had a bad day at the office. For another generation, she was Violet Crawley, the Dowager Countess of Grantham in Downton Abbey, a woman whose put-downs were so precise they should be studied in linguistics departments. But long before either of those roles existed, she was already a legend. She won her first Academy Award in 1969 for The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and a second Oscar in 1978 for California Suite. Her early career was just as remarkable as her later one. After her Broadway breakthrough in 1956's New Faces, her 1958 performance in the British crime film Nowhere to Go became a turning point. Even her Othello, opposite the legendary Laurence Olivier, became the stuff of theater folklore. By the time she reached her 30s, she had already established herself as one of the most formidable talents of her generation, alongside contemporaries like Judi Dench and Vanessa Redgrave. The tributes poured in, and one came from the palace when news of her death broke. Tributes flooded in from across the entertainment world and beyond, but perhaps none carried more symbolic weight than the one from Buckingham Palace itself. King Charles III publicly mourned Maggie Smith's passing, a fitting gesture for a woman who had been appointed a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire back in 1990, recognizing decades of contribution to British arts and culture. Fellow actors, directors, and former co-stars from across her Harry Potter and Downton Abbey casts shared memories of her sharp humor, her professionalism, and, almost universally, her ability to make even the most nervous young actor feel completely at ease on set. For someone whose on-screen characters were often intimidating, those who worked with her described someone warm, generous, and quick to laugh. Why her death feels different? There's a reason Maggie Smith's passing hit so many people harder than expected, even those who never met her. She wasn't just an actress, she was a constant. For over 60 years, in one form or another, she was always there. If you grew up in the 70s, you knew her from the stage and from films like Travels with My Aunt. If you were a kid in the 2000s, she was the no-nonsense professor guiding Harry Potter through his darkest moments. If you binged period dramas in the 2010s, she was the icy, hilarious matriarch of Downton Abbey, delivering one-liners that became internet memes overnight. She managed something almost no actor manages, relevance across generations, without ever appearing to chase it. She simply kept working, kept choosing interesting roles, and let the work speak for itself, a quiet exit for a towering legacy. In the end, Dame Maggie Smith's death was exactly what her life suggested it would be: understated, private, and surrounded by love rather than cameras. No grand farewell tour, no tell-all interviews about her final days. Just a family asking, gently but firmly, for privacy, and a world responding with an outpouring of gratitude for everything she gave us. She leaves behind more than awards and box office numbers. She leaves behind decades of performances that shaped how millions of people think about wit, dignity, and the art of saying everything with very few words. Whether she was a Scottish schoolteacher, a battle-hardened witch, or an aristocratic grandmother with zero patience for nonsense, Maggie Smith made every role unforgettable, often by doing less, not more. At 89, after a career that spanned the birth of modern British theater to the era of streaming franchises, she finally took her bow. And somewhere, in true Maggie Smith fashion, you can almost imagine her raising one eyebrow at all the fuss, before delivering one last, perfectly timed line and exiting gracefully stage left.